Hey everyone, how y'all doing? My name is Mateo and I am from Exit Muse. Today I am going to talk to you about something that every mixing engineer runs into, and it's a particularly difficult problem. Mixing engineers, their most important asset, aside from the hardware and software that they use, is their ears. For many people, when you're getting into mixing, your ears are not tuned to listen to music technically. This is something that you learn over time. Now, I'm sure many of you know that when our ears hear music that is louder, we typically perceive it as sounding better. I mean, there's tons of examples where people listen to the same song and they A-B it, one louder than the other one, and feel that the louder song is better. This is something that we all suffer from. So today we're going to jump into a song that I'm currently mixing, and there is a piano in question here where I had a moment that I had to pause, step away from the track, and come back to it with fresh ears. And this is something that everyone should do whenever they're mixing. I'm going to open up my session, and we're going to look at this piano track in question. I am now in my Pro Tools session. I am looking at the piano track over here. And as you can see, it's cleverly named piano, so I know what it is. So I have mixed this. I've applied my plugins, my compression, my EQ, whatever I've done to it. Got a few things here. Got filter, saturation, transient designer, compressor, filters, a bunch of stuff. And you'll see why. When I first got this instrumental here, my mind was boggled as to why it sounded this way. It just did not allow vocals to sit in with the piano properly. Now I'll play you the before and after, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite shortcuts, and this is something that all of you should familiarize yourselves with. If you are using Pro Tools, there is a shortcut which is Shift A, and whenever you have a particular track selected, if you hold Shift and press A, it deactivates all the plugins on the track. This is quite possibly one of my favorite shortcuts ever. Might sound silly to you, but just the fact that I can easily bypass all my plugins on that particular track at once, it just saves me time when I try to A/B my track. It's not just only on one track. If you wanted to bypass multiple tracks, you can just select the tracks that you want to bypass all the plugins, hold Shift and press A, and they all bypass. I love this. So for you Pro Tools users, it is Shift A. Now, I'm pretty sure most, if not all, digital audio workstations have similar shortcuts. So just look into the DAW that you use, and I'm sure you'll find a similar shortcut. Let's listen to the before of this piano track. So I'm going to solo it, and we're going to bypass all the plugins. So when I first heard this, I was like, this piano is quite phasey. There's some frequency issues here. So this was something that I had to address. And if you didn't hear it, you can also use a correlation meter, which my meter over here has. So you can see when I play it. It drifts over into the negative more than I'd like it to. So that's saying that there's some cancellation going on. So when I'm listening to the piano, I decided I need to fix it. So I spent quite a bit of time going through it, mixing it, and after a while, I got to this. Okay, so I know what you're saying, but yo, Mateo, the other one didn't sound so bad. Maybe, but that might have also been because when I deactivated my plugins, the piano track was louder. And due to the processing that I did with the plugins, it actually made the piano lower in level. Now, there's a couple ways that you can prevent this from happening. What you want to do to really figure out if the piano sound better or whatever else you're mixing sounds better before or after the plugins, you want something that adjusts the level so when you deactivate the plugins, the sound that you're mixing is at the same level as it is when you have the plugins in. So what I use in Pro Tools is a plugin that comes standard with Pro Tools, and you can go into the Avid folder, and it's called Time Adjuster. Now, this allows you to off-place the sound by a set amount of samples, but it also lets you adjust the level of the audio passing through it. As a caution, I would recommend you putting this at the end of your signal chain because gain is very important on the input of plugins. So if you put this at the top of your signal chain, that's going to affect how much signal is going into your plugins, which will then affect the overall sound. Some compressors and EQs change in characteristic when there's more or less gain going into them. As you can see, it's in my last plugin slot. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bypass the plugins and then put them back in and switch between those until we match the levels. So let's listen to the pianos without the plugins. Okay, and now with the plugins. So, I mean, they're not too far off, but definitely the piano without the plugins is louder. So we're going to bring these up by, let's say, a decibel. Okay, and now when I bypass all the plugins, it also bypasses this. So that means the level is not going to be a decibel louder. Now we're going to bring it back in. Kind of close. I'm going to bring it up just one more decibel. So we're going to bring it up to 2 decibels instead of 1. So now we're going to bypass it again. And now we're going to bring it in. Okay, I think that's quite close. Now, this is something that's going to require time getting used to. You know, learning to train your ears how to perceive loudness is one of the most important skills that a mixing engineer can learn. So now that I have the levels relatively matched, and I did this by ear, I feel that what I've done with the processing, that the piano sounds much better now. Now that I've matched the levels, I feel like I can make more of an objective decision because I don't have loudness influencing my decision. Now, while you're training your ears to listen for the differences and not be misled by loudness, it is good to use a metering plugin. There's one that's fairly well known called the Perception Meter, which is made by mastering engineer Ian Shepard. And that's a plugin worth checking out. I'm sure there are free ones. I haven't looked into them, but I'm pretty sure there are. And for those of you that don't have access to a Perception Meter plugin, some of you might think to look at your peak meter to determine the difference. The problem with peak meter is that a peak meter is a sample accurate meter, which means that it is so precise as to how much level it is detecting that it is far superior than the human ear. And that's not what perceived loudness is. Perceived loudness is based on the human ear. If you're going to use a standard metering plugin, pay more attention to the RMS. RMS meters are more representative of the human ear. And better yet, if your metering plugin has the option for different weightings, so like the different filters, if it has a C weighted filter, that's even better. So without getting too deep into it, what C weighting is, it's a representation of how the human ear perceives loudness at louder levels. And that's what the RMS meter will reflect based on a C weighted filter. So it's going to be closer to how the human ear perceives loudness than what a peak meter will show you. So get yourself a metering plugin, whether it's a really expensive one or a free one. There's a lot of great ones out there. You don't need to get the best one, and the most expensive one is not necessarily the best one. Just get a solid metering plugin. I love the Brainworks BX meter. I put it on my master and I have it on in every session, and use it as a way to help you train your ears in perceiving loudness and determining whether or not when you go through mixing a song, if your end product is actually better after you've mixed it. I'm pretty sure every mixing engineer has some story where they spent hours mixing something and then realized after all of that, when they removed their plugins, it ended up sounding better before. That's happened to me, and it's something that you need to be aware of. You know, are you doing more harm than good? So checking your work, essentially, if everyone remembers that from high school math, you know, check your work. That's what I hope you take away from today's tutorial. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for checking out my video today. I hope you took something away from this. I hope it was useful for you, and I hope that you like and share this video with all your friends, even the ones that are not engineers, because maybe you like my voice so much that you want to share it with the world, which is fine. I don't blame you. So follow Exit Muse on Twitter, Instagram at Exit Muse. And on Facebook, it's What's Your Muse. YouTube is also Exit Muse. Feel free to hit the subscribe button below the video if you don't already subscribe. If you have any questions about anything today, feel free to leave it in the comments section below, and I will do my best to get back to everyone. Until next time, happy mixing, and thank you for checking out the video. Take care.